Oh, they've done it! Steven Terodde, an instant hero! Can you believe it? Plenty of packing! No! The comeback is complete! A stunning second half from Schalke!
A stunning second half, not so much. Blau und Weiß sein Leben lang. Herzlich willkommen zurück auf Schalke America. I'm your host, Richard Carmen. No German subtitles today. Like to watch along. Joining me, as always, co-host Jack Mangan. Jack, happy Victory Monday on a Wednesday.
Yeah, Victory Monday on a Wednesday, a time-honored tradition here at Schalke America. Because we don't have a set schedule, we're not responsible. No, I'm just kidding. It was weather that was getting in the way this time. Richard was experiencing some storms. Normally, it's my inability to time manage properly. Anyway, certainly not the second half that I guess many Schalke supporters were looking for, given some of the boos and whistles in the stadium, some conversation happening about that online afterwards. We can maybe talk about that, how you felt about that. But wild game. Week one back in the second division did not disappoint, and honestly, week two didn't either. Both of these games have been completely insane so far. So lots to talk about once again.
There is, and it's funny because someone reached out to us on Schalke America on Twitter or the X, whatever the hell you call it now, and said, "I watched 2 games for Schalke. Is this what I can expect, or is this 2 games?" I'm like, "Welcome for a long road, buddy. This is Schalke." Especially despite the Liga, man.
It's Schalke, but it's also got just a little bit of that special, second division sauce added to the recipe, which kind of, makes things a little bit better.
100%. So before we get into the game, right? What if I presented these stats to you before going into the game? What would your thoughts be? 17 shots at 10 in favor of us, 8-4 shots on target, possession 71-29, 2 red cards for them, 0 for us, and an XG of 2.47 to 0.96. You would think we would probably dominate the game, wouldn't you?
Yeah, I suppose so.
Not so much. It wasn't.
I'll follow your premise.
I mean, well, we'll get into all this mess, but I mean, man, this was a shutout, and Mueller is the real deal. But we got a lot of improvements. I mean, the good thing is,
this is what I was referencing though when I was talking about the booing and whistling. In many ways, we did dominate the game statistically. There's certain reasons for that, obviously, which we can talk about. It's a question of, did we dominate the game to the extent you would have expected given what occurred within the context of the match?
Exactly. And to that, I think most of us say no. And the good news is, after that 5-3 game against Hamburg, we knew we had a lot to work on. But we scored 3 goals on the road, so that's a positive there. This game, we won. We kept a shutout, but we did far from anything spectacular in that game. So there's room for growth in here. So looking at the lineup and I see the chats in lively where Pascal, Anthony, Joseph, William. We see you guys. Gluk auf. The starting lineup wasn't too different. The big difference, obviously, Cisse out, Baumgartel in, right, in the back 4. And then as well, Tempelman inserted, which I wasn't sure of at the beginning. Kahneman and Drexler up top. Now, when I forecasted this game before the watch long, I thought Tempelman was probably going to go up top, keep Kramer on the right because he was doing so well, and move Drexler in the back because he's pretty versatile. What we saw is Tempelman drop in the middle, Drexler go up top. With Drexler, we know he's comfortable up there. Thoughts on the starting 11 of this one?
Yeah, obviously, Cisse, as you mentioned, out because of that red card situation, week 1. And maybe a good thing that he was out of this game because there was more red cards in the air in this game, weren't there? No, I'm just kidding. I'm sure Cisse will be great. But it gave us an opportunity to take a look at Baumgartel, regardless of whether or not he's going to end up being the first choice, which I think he probably will be. I mean, obviously an opportunity to get a look at him right away. Bruno Orion, obviously fine with that. Muller, Ouedraogo, good to see him back and getting a second opportunity right away. And then, Schallenberg. I mean, I expect to see Schallenberg more often than not this season. I feel like he's going to be, likely kind of a mainstay. Mm-hmm. First real look at Tempelman, and then, that up top. This season have not been convinced by Drexler in that position, or really him at all in either of the first 2 games. And I'm wondering at what point that becomes a like a Lasme up top or something like that. And Drexler goes back to kind of his more regular super sub role to kind of come on and help bring some stability to the game at certain points.
Given his age and performances lately, I would agree with you. I mean, the harder question is, well, one more. I mean, I'm fine with Karaman and Lazme. The question is, who goes on what side, right? Because they both can play both sides, which I think is a good problem because during a game, especially if they're being locked down, they can just switch it up and kind of throw the defenses off a little bit. But I think I'm in agreement with you. And the curious thing for me was Ouedraogo came off at halftime and Seguin came in and he was okay. Seguin, I didn't see any. Ouedraogo started out well for 15 minutes and then kind of disappeared. I understand the substitution, I guess, maybe saving his legs or didn't want to put too much pressure on him. The game was it's still in the balance at that point. It's 1-0. We had a red card, so maybe I don't know what Rice was thinking. I got to go back to what he said in the press conference or post match conference. But starting 11, I think the two big takeaways. Obviously, Baumgartel was noticeable defensively. We can get to his one mistake. It wasn't only him on the one playing against Terrence Boyd later, and then in Templeman really stood out for me in this game. That he was probably the bright spot for me in this game out of everyone. I don't know if you feel the same way or feel differently, but he stood out to me.
That's interesting that you say that. I felt that Templeman was active and like noticeably active, but not always effective. And there were moments, and there, we can talk about it. And there was moments where he made like recovery plays, which got him some like credit. And those are one of the situations where I question, like, why were you in a position that you needed to be making a recovery play in the first place? Kind of a thing. But yeah, we can get into it.
Yeah, no, I thought Templeman offensively didn't really contribute as much to your
Correct,
point.
Yeah.
But I thought what I wanted to see after that first game is we were giving up goals left and right. I wanted to see some stability, and I want to see the midfield play a more defensive role in this game to help out the defense, who was obviously struggling in that first game. So I felt like Templeman and Ouedraogo, to an extent, were playing more defensively than they had been in the first game, or the midfield was playing in the first game. So Templeman seemed to be focused more in a defensive way, even though he was positioned up higher than Schallenberg. He seemed to be back a lot, and he made a lot of, to your point, a lot of defensive plays and broke a lot of passes and just kept nagging the opposition when they had the ball. And so for that, if that was meant to be his role, then I think he did it well. But what we want to see is someone in those box-to-box positions is contributing more offensively. We saw a little bit of that Ouedraogo in the first game. Didn't see any of that really by anybody in the second game, I think, in that midfield. So, yeah, I can see why.
Yeah, and I think Templeman may have been hurt by the fact that he was like in combination with Drexler on that side, because I think neither of them were particularly effective in possession. And obviously in possession is only one phase of the game, but like I think neither of them were particularly effective in possession. And because they were on the same side, it sort of like highlighted both of them more than it otherwise would have if they had been, Templeman had been partnered with Karaman, for example,
right,
along those lines. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how it plays out. I like getting a look at him. I'm not like anti-Templeman or like anybody like that based on this. I think we're going to see obviously a lot of rotation early on as we try to like cement a preferred starting 11. I'm more than happy to get a lot of looks at these guys early on.
And I feel like the announcers made a comment similar to you and saying that Drexler was really holding up Templeman and Brunner on the right-hand side, and really there was no flow because of Drexler's inability at times to like keep the flow going, I guess, when the ball came his direction, I guess. So there's a lot of confusion too with the passing between Drexler and Templeman in the game, and Brunner, where the passes were just wildly astray. So
people kept trying to play him forward into space and up the field, and he was like refusing to move towards everything he was trying to do was like conservative, play me the ball backwards, and like so I think there was just disconnects. Like they were assuming that he was going to move into a space they just didn't move into, and I think more often than not, like it was Drexler's fault, like in this game, honestly. So I don't know. Yeah, his approach was weird to me.
Looking at the road teams lineup, Loita in goal. He's obviously a decent goalkeeper. Elvedi, someone we know from the Bundesliga. Kraus, not our Kraus from last season. They also had a Crawl, which we'll get to in a minute, but Tomiak was also in the back. In the midfield, they had Zimmer, Newhouse, Rachel, who played a good game, Pukas, Ritter, who had a good game, Redondo had a good game, and Ake, who started over our boy Terrence Boyd, which was odd to me, which I'm fine with, because, I mean, I prefer not to see Terrence Boyd when I can, because he came in and was like a menace right away, but were you shocked not to see Terrence Boyd? I mean, I don't know if he's out with injury or what, but for me, that was a big shocker going to the game, because I was fully expecting him and fully a similar Glatzel-like.
I think he was injured, and I think he's coming off an injury, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong. I thought I heard somebody mention something like that on the but not surprising to see him get used in some capacity, but if he wasn't fit for the full 90.
Yeah, fair enough. Going into the game started out. We knew it was gonna. Kaiserslautern started pushing out early. We were a little hesitant going forward. We really didn't do well but defensively we were feeling fine. They get this break where Ake comes in, ball bounced around. Schallenberg kind of like lazy, I want to say, defensively. Ritter did really well to control it, and then let's go a howitzer that Mueller had to come in and make a huge save. At first, I was like, did he get it? He's like, yeah, he got it. Fantastic save. Great that he's making these saves, but it's not great that he's getting shots after shot in the last 2 games. But he came out huge on that play because that could have been seriously down 1-0 already, and that would have changed the whole momentum of that game.
Yeah, I'd have to go back and watch how that one developed initially, but I know the play you're talking about, and it does seem like there's been way too much recently of there being a lot of time and space kind of around the edge of the box for people to take these long shots. And on one perspective, you're like, hey, if they want to just take long shots, we'll take that all day. But there has to be a certain level of like contestability to it, and like they don't have a clean angle, and they're just getting these like So I think that one may have been like a missed tackle by Schallenberg or something. Like he tried to and got whatever, and so like the space kind of opened up as opposed to just like poor positioning initially or whatever. But early shot across the bows for sure.
Yeah, and it's a good wake-up call. I mean, good to see that Mueller is, like, again, the real deal and made a great save right there. And then the game, Schalke started to get into the game a little bit more. We started seeing a little bit more involvement with Oweyan. There's a play where the ball goes up to the top. The Karaman does well to hold up 1 or 2 guys. It gets fouled just on the outside of the box. Some people are calling for penalty, but it was clearly like outside of the box. No penalty. It's a free kick, though, for our boy Thomas Oweyan. He steps up, and for second consecutive game, it's a nice assist by him into the box to Simo Tarota, another guy who should be marked in the box by Kaiserslautern, wasn't, and he puts it away 2 games in a row. He's on pace for 30 goals, if you want to look at that way. But great start for us, despite the early jitters. I think it was a good response by Schalke and really Karaman to set up the foul and the play, but then obviously Oweyan to Tarota. What a lethal combination right there.
Yeah, in a much needed early goal at that point in the match too, just because I feel like Kaiserslautern came out and were putting pressure on us very high up the field very early, like all the way to essentially the box, and contesting us all the way up there. So it was making it difficult for us to get things going. I think that's part of the reason why that first 15 minutes or so was so sketchy from us, and why Kaiserslautern had sort of that inertia in the final third and someone on the counter sometimes. But it's great from the Tirada point of view of we talked about coming back into the second division. What kind of Tirada are we going to see? Is it going to be, no one's expecting, the record setting Tirada, but is it going to be a 8-10 goal Tirada, or is it going to be like a 15-20 goal, Tirada, that kind of a thing? Yeah. And, early returns are that he is much more effective at this level, as we know, than he typically is. And obviously a small part of that, or a larger part of that really is Oweyan's play as well, and his delivery. It's a very well-shaped ball. It's a lot of pace and everything. And then Tirada got up well and directed it well too. But yeah, it's great to see Oweyan getting back in the swing of things, because this is what he was 2 seasons ago, and it was so shocking how poor he was, and now he's gone back to being very influential on set pieces, dead ball situations, as well as kind of from open play at times.
It's craziness. Shout out to everyone in the chat tonight. Let us know where you're watching or listening along to from. Interesting question. I don't have the answer to this, and I'm curious if you know. So Joseph says, and I heard about this during the game, but there was a choreo ban for Schalke during the game. I heard this during the game, so I had no idea about this. Did you hear anything about this and why it may have happened or not?
No, I'm sorry. Can't speak to that, unfortunately.
Yeah, we'll have to look that up. But I remember, I totally forgot about it until just now when Joseph brought it up. But I remember hearing it during the game. I was like, wait, what? What's going on here? So, but I mean, it wasn't stopping our fans, right? They're loud as heck at Velton's Arena. So, moving on though. Yeah,
not related to when we had the blue smoke filling the balloon in the team, but that was sweet, by the way. But
yeah, that was awesome. That was awesome. So up 1-0 at that point, and it was good. I mean, at that point again, like I think I said during the live stream, was that we can't rest on a 1-0 game, especially what we saw last week. We need to build on this and get another goal. And the game kind of stabilized at that point. I thought Kaiserslautern towards the end of the first half really started to gain momentum, at least from what I remember, and maybe you remembered something differently. But then things really started to take a change where it was a heads-up play by 2 players in particular. Mueller comes out. So it's a play where I think the defenders are passing back and forth to each other, and it might have been whoever it was something on the left hand side. I think Kaminsky tried to pass it to Baumgartel. It was a poor pass, and he would have had to run back to it. Luckily, Mueller was paying attention. He was way out of his box, came up, knocks it over the top while everyone's coming back on side. Everyone's playing lackadaisical. Oyan plays it beautifully and reads it, times it perfectly, gets to the ball just in time where the keeper has two choices: lets him go by and empty net goal for a tap-in, or fouls him for a red card. He chose the red card, but I mean, heads up play by Mueller and heads up play by Oyan to kind of read that, and then kind of left the goalie Lota in no man's land, and he had no choice but to foul him.
Yeah, I mean, like on one level, I understand. Like, I think the center backs, like the back line, really for Kaiserslautern, kind of knew that I think some of Schalke's attacking players were offside, and that's why there wasn't a lot of urgency to maybe to go for that loose ball. But at the same time, like when that ball is played, Thomas Oyan is halfway between midfield and the box.
Yeah,
he is all the way on the sideline. And he runs through like two lines of Kaiserslautern players and sprints there and beats everyone. Yeah, it is just a heads up play from Thomas Owen to recognize that is a live ball. He is onside, even if the rest of the Schalke players aren't.
Yeah.
And by that point, there's no interference because like they're, you know what I mean? Like they're way away from that.
Yeah.
So, it's just another great example of Oyan just being locked on. And it seemed like once again last season, like he was lacking confidence. I don't know if there was something going on in his personal life, if it was just injuries or whatever, but like he just seemed like mentally not the same player, and he's very switched on at the moment, and it's showing in his play.
Him and Simon, right? Both of them seem to be on right in the Bundesliga, in the Zweite Liga, I should say. So it's good to see that heads up play, and it causes a red card there, early ejection by for the keeper for Kaiserslautern. So in comes Kral, and he had some shaky moments to start. I mean, as you imagine, you coming off the bench, you're not really expecting to start, and all of a sudden you're thrusted into the game. And so, he gets in the game right away. I thought this was great for us to take opportunity. And I said it right when it happened. And a couple people like go to me during the live stream is like, this is where we tell the difference between an average team and a great team. An average team just continues to go with the flow, maybe even gets dominated to an extent when you're having a man. I imagine if this was Hamburg in the situation, they add some goals after the situation, especially after the later card we're talking about in a second. But Schalke didn't really do anything, I think, that would that tipped me. You wouldn't think it was a red card in that game after that point. Yeah, we had a little bit more possession, and it showed at halftime the possession statistics, but really there was nothing from Schalke that was threatening after this red card, unless you saw something at the end of that first half.
I agree. And I think to give Kaiserslautern some credit, they did a pretty good job regrouping and getting organized and making it tough. But yeah, this is where, and then especially we'll get to in the second half, this is where I think some of the discontent kind of grew. The Hamburg game is one thing. That's a team that we expect to kind of be in competition with potentially. Kaiserslautern obviously a little bit less so. So I think we were probably expecting a little bit better of a first half performance overall anyway. And then you add in the advantage, and then that starts to widen the gap between, expectation and the performance that was ultimately turned in.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. Looks like Jacob says in the chat that the Gelsenkirchen police have not been messing around ever since that famous blue shirt episode of the smoke. That was the reason they kind of been clamping down lately. That's so funny. That's kind of why the choreo went away. But anyway, 1-0 at halftime. I think we're still in pretty good position. And I mean, be up 1-0 at halftime with a man advantage. You're thinking, okay, this is okay. We'd rather have a 2-goal lead, but 1-goal lead and a 1-man advantage. We'll take that. And go into the second half, I figured that Kaiserslautern at some point would bring in Terrence Boyd. They would start increasing attack to get that equalizing goal because they felt that Schalke's not that great defensively, so why not try to go for that draw? And in retrospect, I mean, and on the flip side, Schalke then would have more opportunities to go down and hopefully attack. That didn't happen for Schalke. Maybe they had opportunities but didn't do it. But what we saw was that Tomiak had a yellow card in the first half. Ends up getting a second yellow for another stupid play by him. He gets ejected from the game. Now
he had several tackles. He was like completely undisciplined that entire match. Yeah, it was. He was
asking for it. Yeah, I think the yellow card came late too because he should have gotten a yellow card a lot earlier in the game for sure. So yeah, he was asking for it. Gets that red card, and at that point I'm like 2 men up. We got to score another goal. I mean, just one more goal and I'll be happy. And we didn't look that great, honestly. We finally. We didn't go for it looked like we were content just winning 1-0 in that game. The substitutions, like I was waiting for something to happen. Finally, we saw last minute come in. I thought Drexler was struggling in the game. Obviously, Odraogo came off. I felt that Kaminsky had an early yellow as well. He and Tomiak actually had the yellow early on in the game where they were getting into it. I love the yellow Kaminsky win because Tomiak kind of took out Mueller and Kaminsky stood up for his goalkeeper, and I think it's a worthy yellow. But at that point, I said, look, they got a red card. The referee's probably looking for a second red card for somebody. So get Kaminsky out of there before it's evened up all of a sudden. So there's a lot of things that I didn't like from Rice. I mean, how did you see that the second half pan out, even before the second and third goals? Like, what were you saying?
I mean, as far as the Rice thing goes, though, I think we legitimately don't have a lot of depth. So like you're putting Matriziani in there more often than not, aren't you? I mean, like,
yeah.
So it's kind of like whether or not I mean, I don't know. I can understand it to some extent, but yeah. We need to be careful about that, especially when you have one CB already out, with the red card. You don't want to add a second to that. No, but I agree. I don't think I don't think we capitalized on the advantage that we had for sure. And that was definitely disappointing. And until even the second goal that we ultimately scored, like there's some good play involved in it. But there's a little bit of luck on that one as well. It wasn't really until I think we made some of the substitutions that we started seeing a little bit of a change. So I think some of the substitutions were good in that respect. They just maybe you could argue about like when they came and that kind of stuff. But
yeah, I think Brian Lastman was almost an instant impact when he came on. Obviously, you saw when the 69th minute or whatever it was, good play between, I think it might have been like Karaman and not Karaman, excuse me. Oh man, who is it? Somebody in the midfield, I forget who the hell it was, ended up giving the ball over to Lastman on the right-hand side. He goes for a cross in the middle, just puts in a danger zone, really. Crawl really messes that play up. He doesn't read it at all. I don't know if he saw it late, wasn't expecting it or what, misread the angle, but it came to him. He like touched it, falls to Karaman's feet, and he just taps it home. So you see a goal and assist from Lastman technically, and a tap in for Karaman, but at least he finished it, but it's not the goal we wanted to see. It should have come a lot earlier, and it was just, we'll take it.
Yeah, I don't think the keeper read it well, but he actually did slip on
yes.
So like it was like muddy or wet or whatever, so he lost his footing and he wasn't able to get quite the purchase on it that he wanted to, and so it kind of fell out into to Karaman's path more than it was initially going to. I think it was going to go more kind of like directly across goal and kind of bounced out. Yeah, I mean, Lasman, it's a good ball from him initially. I mean, it's not like a perfect ball, but it's into a dangerous area. It's hit, with a decent amount of like pace and whip, and it's hit kind of early, kind of towards two, in the mix for two runners. And we just didn't have enough of that, honestly, in the first half. With Brunner, who we know is not going to get up and be that kind of player more often than not anyway. And then Drexler was not effective in that area. And then we've already kind of talked about Templeman. So, yeah, but more good play from Karaman as well, making kind of a trailing run off of Tirada a little bit later, still following the play in, and then being there and being able to finish. It's be good to see. I thought Karaman both last week and this week was good. I did not expect to be a proponent of Karaman in the starting lineup to the extent that I am so far based on his play.
Yeah. Karaman with his second good game in a row, like we said last week. Maybe Zweite Liga and for Toronto and Oyan, maybe Zweite Liga is their thing, right? Maybe they're better in the second league. So we second see Karaman, obviously getting a goal, second game in a row, and then to make things end, Karaman had a nice run towards the end of the game. Well, before we get to that goal, Terrence Boyd gets into the game and immediately causes chaos. And I think I joked and I said like, oh look, Boyd's coming on, we're probably not going to even mark him. And sure enough, didn't look like we were marking him in the game, and all of a sudden he goes on this run, a slaloming run, where he takes on like the whole Schalke team. Nobody's defending him. He breaks Baumgartel's ankles. He breaks Latz's ankles. Goes 1-on-1 against Mueller. Luckily, Mueller stood up and saved his ass. But how does he go through like 7 guys on a run? A center forward who's like 200-some pounds go on a run almost the entire pitch, not getting stopped. It's like the guy's like, "Yeah, you're not going to shoot. You're not going to score." And he
was
almost
interesting.
Did.
Boyd's such a different look, I felt like, to the other attackers they had earlier in the game. He's a much more physical presence and kind of a different profile.
Were they scared?
I felt like, what?
Were they scared of him or like to tackle him?
I don't know. I mean, he kind of seemed that way to some extent. It looked like he came out and had just sort of like a little bit of like edge to him or confidence that kind of like unsettled us a little bit. Yeah, nice piece of play from him. And yeah, I mean, at that point, given kind of where things were, that still could have potentially changed the game a little bit. This is why, once again, we're like frustrated we weren't really putting this thing to bed to the extent that we should have.
I mean, 2-1. If he scored that, made 2-1 at that point, it's like, oh shoot, we might draw this with 2 men advantage. And then so that leads to a corner.
Time.
Yeah, and then it leads to a corner kick, and off that corner kick, again, Terrence Boyd, who's the main striker for them, is unmarked in the box, and he just missed the shot. If he had put it on target, it would have been in the goal, I think. But he wide open, takes a shot, and just misses outside the post. And it's like, what are we doing, guys? They're like, we're gonna kill ourselves here. We're gonna squeaky bum time, like you said. It's like 2-0, barely. It's like a soft 2-0 lead, and you're just letting them into the game. They look fairly dangerous, being 2 men down. And so a lot of teams, when they go down a man, they regroup, like you say, and they actually may cause some chaos for the opposition. Certainly against us, but 2-man advantage, you don't think that even should be an issue, and it certainly was. Luckily, the lethal combination from the previous goal, Kahneman, and makes his nice run into the middle of the pitch, and then feeds it to Lazme outright. And what as Jacob said, some sauce on him. I mean, that shot, that's a Bolter-like shot there. I mean, wonderful top deck goal or whatever you want to call it. Puts it past Krall, whether he could save it or not. It was just a powerful shot, and that's what you want to see.
Yeah, Lasma looked like he was kind of like a men playing amongst boys when he kind of got subbed in on that right wing. Yeah. He just seemed like he was able to get like a half yard of separation, like whenever he needed to be able to play a ball, to get a shot off or to play across. And it's just kind of whenever he needs that space, he has like the athleticism to achieve it. And I mean, his first touch on that play was clean. I mean, like flypaper clean. I mean, just snatched that thing out of the air, brought it back in front of him. And then, just a completely confident, vicious finish. It was a great goal, great economy of motion from him and everything. And, like to see the impact that he's had coming off the bench there. I wouldn't be surprised if once again he's in the starting lineup more sooner rather than later. I think we could see Karaman, Lasma or more Lasma at some point. We'll see. Looking forward to it.
More Lasma? Definitely more Lasma. Not Tobias Moore, maybe. But we'll see. I mean, we say that, and it seems like obvious to us that, it should be Karaman and Lasme. But we don't know what Rice is thinking. Maybe he wants to see – maybe he thinks Lasme is a super sub kind of player. I mean, the 2 times he's come in, he's looked very good. Maybe he thinks he looks good like that. I mean, we think maybe a Drexler would be better in the super sub position. Moore had the first game. He didn't really provide. We were very slow, I think, as somebody said in the chat. Offensively, we just didn't seem like we had the extra thrust, even though we scored 3 goals in our first game. But, Lasme and Karaman certainly have that special something. Karaman's obviously playing on another level this year. Lasme looks like he's a dangerous person. And obviously having a guy, Torreda's just feasting at this point because he's just in the middle and just gets the balls. I do want to talk about Simo Torreda because I thought, even if he didn't score a goal, I thought he had a good game. I thought he was hustling. Came back a couple times, make defensive plays, held up the ball fairly well. I thought
agree.
He's still not that great off like when you head the ball to him or give a header for him. But I thought overall he did pretty well. I thought, and that's what you want to see. We're missing that last year.
He's not. I mean, he did score a headed goal in this game, so there's that. But I mean, like he's not as good at aerial duels. Yeah. In like when there's an initial ball being played into him as you would expect him to be when he's like backing down somebody with his size advantage.
Correct.
I do stand by the fact that just on the eye test, and I could be totally wrong about this. Once again, it could be the second division makes it look this way. It seems like he's slimmed down a little bit compared to maybe last year, and it looks a little bit more mobile, a little bit more energetic, covering a little bit more ground. And I think, I don't know. I think if we, increase our wing play, which we seem like we're doing at this level so far relative to what we were able to provide last year at times. I think Torreda will do just fine ultimately if he stays healthy.
Yeah, I certainly agree with that. And I asked a couple people during the live watch along, and everyone's like, "Yeah, we think he looks skinnier." And like you said, it could be just the Zweite Liga defenses are a little bit thinner. They're not as bulky as the guys in there's no Nicolas Sulas of the world in the Zweite Liga. So maybe that's it. But yeah, Torreda looks good. He looks a bit pacier, and again, it could be the defenses in the Zweite Liga. I don't know, but good to see either way. He's scoring goals, and that's what I mean. It's keeping Poulter on the bench. We don't know what Poulter can bring or not, but we just want goals at this point. And I think, like you said, the wing play is the huge thing for us. Yeah, having a Thomas Owe on and maybe another right wing back that contributes with the passes, but you really need these front 2 players to be helping out with the passes and also, be able to keep the play and the flow going in the game. And so far, Karaman has certainly done that. Lasme has done that in his brief appearances. And so, there's room for optimism here. But, overall, a 3-0 win. Statistics, it looks like we had a good victory. But much work to be done because it was not pretty at all.
Was this from the Hamburg game and I'm just misremembering it as from the Kaiserslautern game? But was there early in the match that combination between Ouedraogo and Terada that almost paid off, but Terada played it too far out in front of him on the return pass?
I think it happened in both games. I think it did happen in both games. Like Ouedraogo was good in the first 15 minutes and then just disappeared. He kind of ghosted. I don't know if he was what happened, but he kind of disappeared. But the first 15 minutes, he was lively and he had a couple opportunities with, I think it was Terada. So I think you're remembering correctly. It's just
I'm not upset that he was pulled. I don't think he had a good first half overall. I'm not upset he's pulled at 45 minutes. He's a 17-year-old kid. Like, there's no reason he needs to be playing full 90-minute games all the time anyway. No. So I'm happy with kind of protecting him and using him where you see fit. But yeah, he does. Yeah, I mean, in possession on the ball, obviously in particular, more than like off the ball, but on the ball, like, yeah, he's very fluid and makes good decisions. I feel like more often than not.
Yeah, no, definitely for sure. So we win that game. To I think Joseph's point, I mean, so many red cards this first 2 weeks. This is fight the Liga. So in the first week we had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 red cards. This week we had 1, 2, 3. We had 3 red cards, but still 2 of them in one game. Lots of craziness so far. Some Hertha lost again. That's a shocker. Looking at the standings. Who else? Kaiserslautern lost twice. Eintracht. So those 3 teams have all lost twice already. We are in 10th place currently, but I mean, like Hansa and Holstein Kiel, I don't expect them to hold that 6-point or undefeated streak. Holstein Kiel, maybe they're pretty decent last year, but you know the St. Pauli's and Greuther Fürths of the world, they're all in the mix right now, and it's wide open. It's what you expect after 2 games. But Hertha really is a surprise, I think, so far of the season, the short young season here. Poor Hertha.
Yeah, I mean, can't say I'm shedding any tears over it personally, but yeah, there you go for sure. Yeah, Holstein Kiel up with the air is crisp at the moment.
Yes,
in the top end. Hamburg obviously still up there as well, where we would expect them to be. Yeah, obviously way too early to even really care about, where people are on the table relative. But yeah, they had noticeable results from Hertha.
Before we look at the Pokal match this Friday, thoughts on player or man of the match? Obviously, the first game, it was a no-brainer. It was Mueller. Mueller was like nine fantastic saves. It was hard to beat him. Yes, some of the guys did well. But this game, I mean, there's a couple guys who had goal and assists. I think last one was counted as an assist in the first one, but Kahneman goal and assist, legit goal and assist. Last minute, what you call what you will. Oweyan played well. Terada played well. Thoughts on Mueller, obviously, as well. Who do you like for man of the match in this last game?
For me, it's probably Oweyan.
Okay.
Because I thought he was decent defensively and was good in the areas, and also like his heads up play changed the game like significantly. Not that like Karaman drawing the foul that led to that didn't either, obviously because Karaman had some nice plays too, but I feel like in particular that like how alert and intelligent of a play that was from Oweyan gives him the nod in my opinion for this particular match.
Eric says the 3 most northern teams are at the top 3 right now. Eventually the weather will go bad. That's true. Yeah, that's a good shot by you in terms of man of the match. I mean, Kahneman is obviously an excellent shot, 1 goal, 1 assist. I like Terada's play. Yes, he had a goal, but the play he was doing off the ball or with the ball with his back to goal, I thought was really lively. Baumgartel, he had a decent match overall, I think, but he looked terrible on that one Boyd run, as did Latza, who got his ankles broke. Schallenberg was okay in the game. Brunner, again, another off game by him. Is this perplexing me?
Yeah, weird. I will say I do think I know what you're talking about on that play with Boyd. I do think actually Baumgartel looked a little bit better than Kaminsky overall on this one.
Yeah,
I thought this was a little bit of an off game for Kaminsky relative to what we could probably expect in this division this year. Not that I think he's going to be great, but I thought he was like a little bit more sketchy than he normally is.
I have to apologize because I think I jinxed it because I think right before that play or several months before that play, I said, I feel like Baumgartel is the Maurice Jens of this season. I said, not quite his level, but, he maybe it's a dynamic change we needed. And all of a sudden he does that. I'm like, okay, I'll just shut it up now. But in terms of man of the match, I think I'm going to go with Kahneman, with the goal and assist. It's just good to see him, being lively and stuff like that. So Yeah, no, it's good to see. And then like so this weekend coming up, this Friday coming up, we're playing against Eintracht Braunschweig in the Pokal. We don't have another Bundesliga game until the 18th, 19th, so 2 weeks from now. But the Pokal game coming up here, it is the only game going on Friday, which is nice. No watch along because you and I both got to work, but I expect to see changes from the starting 11. I hope to see changes. Some like a Kozuki in there. I mean, what are your thoughts going into this game?
Yeah, I mean, Kazuki's a weird one because on one level I feel like he's possibly more like potential than actual, and they may still be kind of like trying to develop him a little bit.
Fair enough.
In some sense, which is why he's not really getting the run of the green at the moment. But like that doesn't really make it. It's one of those things where it's like, wouldn't you expect that to be like an improvement? Yeah, and Jens Scarlett's funny. That from Jacob. Yeah, but like wouldn't you expect there to be an improvement in the second division because of the drop in the level of competition? So like as like effective as Kazuki was, as early as he was when he just kind of came out of nowhere in the top division last season, wouldn't you expect that to improve when we take a step down? And just hasn't happened yet. Maybe it will happen.
Yeah, I'm
sure he'll be fine. But yeah, it makes me wonder whether or not like he may have been a little bit of a flash in the pan kind of a thing. And like every day in, day out in training, they're just not seeing that compared to others, or maybe there's like a lack of understanding of like instructions or like game, that kind of stuff. Maybe it's like harder for him to like play the team game or whatever. I have no idea. I'm just entirely speculating. But yeah, I know I sympathize with wanting to see more of him because he was a very exciting player and brings something unique to the table.
It's similar and maybe not quite, but Timo Becker, who played in the Bundesliga the year we got relegated, looked very well. One of the better defenders we had in that team that year. You think going to the Zweite Liga, it's a guaranteed lock at that right back position, and he doesn't even get to play again. And yes, it's a bit larger sample size because he played almost the entire season or most of the season, as opposed to Kazuki played like maybe a handful of games. But for whatever reason, all the managers that we had last year, none of them thought that Timo Becker was worthy or didn't have the right quality or whatever to play any games. Eventually we lost them, and so maybe Kazuki, instead of having another Timo Becker, just trying to slowly develop him. And at least what I want to see is if he's not going to play, put him in, give him some pitch time. You're only going to get better by playing, not just by doing practice and watching. I don't know. We'll see what happens. I hope to see some changes. I mean, I just do want to see some changes. Whether it's Poulter starting, Kazuki in there, what have you. But we play Braunschweig the very next week in the league. So and that game is going to be, I want to see if it's because the Pokal is on the road for us, and then again we just stay there. We just stay there for a week, I guess, because they're going to be home again. And that one should be on ESPN Plus, or maybe it's not. Or we'll see. We'll find out.
One more comment on Kazuki, real quick.
Please.
Sorry to go like sometimes when a player has as meteoric of a rise as a player like Kazuki has, it may have been because they tapped into a very rich vein of form, and then the interest in that temporary vein of form catapulted them up probably higher than they were ready to go at that point. And then there's an imbalance between like where they're at. Once again, pure speculation, but like he kind of came to the Bundesliga from nowhere over the course of like he was in Japan and then was in like a lower division in Germany, and then suddenly he's like, oh, I'm starting games in the Bundesliga. It's like, where did that come from? So I mean, yeah, maybe that kind of like settled out, and now he's just kind of like
Okay, that's a good shot. That's probably a reasonable shot too. Hopefully he is all but the talent that we just got to slow develop him. We'll see what happens with him. But maybe we'll see some Nicholas Toyer or some other guys too. But Seguin and Tempelman, maybe see more of them as well, or Latza, something to that effect. But we'll see what happens here. Braunschweig. Ultimately, we have to win that game. That's we haven't done well in the Pokal in the last many years.
That's true. It's been disappointing. Yeah. Especially when there's campaigns where you're like, nothing's happening this campaign. It would be fun to make a little bit of a cup run. And we've had we lost to Bielefeld, I think, a couple of years ago when they were in the second division. Or maybe not. I forgot. I don't know.
Yeah.
We've had some tough ones, but yeah.
Last year we lost to Werder last year. Who did we lose to? Wolfsburg or Werder, one of the two last season. But it was early in the rounds as well. We kind of had a bad draw there, but yeah, it's a good draw for us here. A team that's struggling to start the season, a team that's lower on the table and expected to be lower on the table throughout the season. So let's see what we can get. Hopefully get a nice result. And then the week later, we get to play them all again. the next league game will be Sunday, August 20th. We'll find out if it's gonna be televised or not, because that'll determine if we have a watch along or not. So, anything else you want to talk about tonight?
Nah, that's all from me.
Oh, look at that. We're just so good. We're like timely. Look at this.
Yeah, 40 minutes, not bad. Nice to be back on nice to have our first Victory Monday.
Nice to be
on
back.
a Wednesday of the season.
Nice Victory Monday on a Wednesday. Yeah, absolutely. Now, hey, first Victory Monday, first of many, or I'm hoping. So, yeah, let's keep this train rolling and see what it brings here. But where can our followers find us or you on social media?
At JMMangan, JMMANGAN on Twitter, and recently somewhat active in the Discord now. Mildly active in the Discord, but my presence has been known, so you can, in theory, connect with me there if you want to join. The Schalke Discord that we have getting established. There's some nice conversations happening there.
A Kazuki like meteoric presence in the Discord. Hope you don't fade away. Get after that. But shout out to everyone on Discord. A lot of the Discord members are on here on the chat tonight with us. We appreciate you guys. Some great comments going back and forth in the chat about Schalke games and just banter in general. So join the Discord. Link will be in the description, and we'll also put it out. We'll tweet it out. All our tweets will have the link with it too. So you can follow me at r_KHARMAN, but more importantly, you can follow us at SchalkeAmerica.com or go to SchalkeAmerica.com or at Schalke America all across social media. At SchalkeAmerica.com, we'll try to keep giving you articles, follow up on press conferences, and the like. So keep an eye on there. And then you can also follow our podcast anywhere it streams music. We are primarily a podcast. We were asked that question during a watch along. And it's like, oh, do you guys do anything else other than watch alongs? Yeah, it's like we're podcasts. The watch alongs is a nice added feature, I guess. So if you haven't done so yet, make sure you subscribe to our YouTube page, like the video, would help with the algorithms again. So no watch along this Friday for the Pokal. So enjoy it. Without us, without my voice in your ear. So it'll be nice and soothing, I guess, for you. But Friday, and then we'll catch back up on next Monday, maybe, depending on the weather.
We'll see you there. We'll see you another time.
I will see you, or I will see you later. Oh, inside joke there. All right, Jack. For Jack and myself, we hope you guys have a good night. Enjoy the rest of the week, and the Pokal Friday. Enjoy it. Until then, next podcast. We'll see you then. Glück auf.